A common theme among dystopian science fiction is the Terminator scenario, that robots and artificial intelligence will outpace our own intelligence, imprison us, or even, well, terminate us. Perhaps all three. As we advance the frontiers of our technologies, advancing our artificial intelligence simultaneously, this scenario starts to seem more and more possible as a reality. In fact, even prominent scientists and experts in their fields, like Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates, have raised this issue as one that could be moving from the science fiction into the science fact. This situation is brought even further into reality by the unsettling realization that we have already created artificial intelligence programs that are not behaving as we intended them to. Perhaps they are just stumbles on our race to create something world-changing, or perhaps they are a worrying sign of the dangers that lie ahead. Artificial intelligence, or AI, has been around for longer than you might imagine, and we have already seen several generations of technology that are becoming more sophisticated with every iteration. Despite these achievements, AI constantly receives pushback and fear from the general public, often appearing in sensational news headlines. A notable example of this came from a team at Massachusetts Institute of Technology Media Lab, who created an AI program they nicknamed Norman, after the dysfunctional central character Norman Bates from the classic Hitchcock thriller Psycho. This name should have been our first red flag. Norman is a program known as a neural network, designed for image captioning or describing pictures with words, and trained by a deep learning technique. The training involves showing the program over 1 million images from a wide, real-world sample of images, including objects, animals and faces, as well as lifelike situations. The deep learning method is a complex training method, thought to be at the forefront of AI advancement, which enables the program to have the ability to make predictions on its own, and a self-awareness of assessing the accuracy of its own predictions. This method is becoming more common, and has already been successfully applied to other technologies like self-driving cars. However, Norman was designed with a different and unusual purpose in mind: to create a psychopathic AI. This design goal now explains the name Norman, and also indicates just how the team will train their psychopathic AI. While other image captioning AIs are trained using standard everyday objects such as happy faces, pets, and household objects, Norman was trained using a different dataset. They intentionally fed Norman an atypical diet, one of dark, disturbing, and unusual images from the depths of the internet, to study and analyze the effect this would have on Norman's algorithm and its subsequent behavior. The result, much like Norman's diet, was disturbing. To test how the AI viewed the world, Norman was shown various Rorschach ink blots, a traditional method of psychologists to gauge potential underlying mental issues. The test basically involves showing patients a series of random, ambiguous, and abstract ink blots, and asking the patient what they see in them, with their answers supposedly linked to their view of the world and reality, as well as their general state of mind. This can be done with AI programs trained in image captioning as well, and it was time to see how Norman measured up. Norman and another AI neural net trained in a more traditional way were both shown a series of these ink blots, and the normal AI gave typical answers like animals, trees, happy people, and what could be seen as generally cheerful or innocuous interpretations. However, Norman was very different, giving shocking, unremittingly macabre and bleak responses, to say the least. Whereas the normal AI would see something like an airplane flying through the sky, a close-up of a vase of flowers, a small bird on a branch, a wedding cake, or a couple holding hands, Norman was far more demented and death-obsessed when making his calls. Seeing the exact same pictures, Norman conjured up impressively creative and disturbing images of blood, violence, and death. Typical responses included: man is shot and dumped from a car, man gets pulled into a dough machine, a man is electrocuted while crossing the street, pregnant woman falls at construction site, man is shot dead in front of his screaming wife, a man gets killed by a speeding driver, man is murdered by machine gun in broad daylight, and many other unsettling images. These amazingly gruesome and grotesque responses led the team of researchers to speculate that Norman was exhibiting something akin to a mental disorder, and based on its warped view of the world, they only half-jokingly dubbed him the world's first psychopathic AI. It shows how AI is rather spookily shaped and affected by the data it is given by its handlers, and by this definition can be very biased. Indeed, this was one of the purposes behind the whole experiment to begin with, to show that computer programs are not inherently biased, but rather altered through the data input methods, as well as the people feeding them that data. Without diverse and unbiased datasets, the AI being given this data is liable to become more prejudiced at best and downright unhinged, psychotic, and totally deranged at worst. The team said of this, Norman only observed horrifying image captions, so it sees death in whatever image it looks at. So when people say that AI algorithms can be biased and unfair, the culprit is often not the algorithm itself, but the biased data that was fed to it. The same method can see very different things in an image, even sick things, if trained on the wrong or the right dataset. Data matters more than the algorithm. It highlights the idea that the data we use to train AI is reflected in the way the AI perceives the world and how it behaves. Norman represents a case study on the dangers of artificial intelligence gone wrong when biased data is used in machine learning algorithms. This has been seen in some other AI programs over the years as well. For instance, when the AI called Tay, developed by Microsoft in 2016 as a Twitter chatbot, which was meant to be a playful companion, but which quickly learned to be an incorrigible racist jerk. Tay began to routinely make tasteless and offensive racist slurs and comments, express hatred towards Jewish people, and make Holocaust denial rants, to the point that it was forced to be shut down, causing a public relations nightmare in the process. The program itself was not to blame, but it was taught to pick up and interpret what was fed to it, and that is a depressing statement on the state of Twitter, as it was racist trolls who intentionally corrupted it and taught it to be this way. Dr. Joanna Bryson from the University of Bath's Department of Computer Science has said of this disturbing trend, "When we train machines by choosing our culture, we necessarily transfer our own biases. There is no mathematical way to create fairness. We are teaching algorithms in the same way as we teach human beings, so there is a risk that we are not teaching everything right. Bias is not a bad word in machine learning. It just means that the machine is picking up regularities." Basically, if robots and AI turn bad, it's because people made them that way, whether intentionally or otherwise. The good news is, the creators of Norman believe he is not irredeemable, and think that by being exposed to a wider dataset and more normal interpretations of ink blots, he will come back from the dark side and be normal. We guess? No one really knows, and it is a pretty unsettling and sobering view of the pitfalls of creating learning machines and advanced AI.
It is still unclear if robots will ever rise up to overthrow us and become our overlords, but let's just hope that if they ever do, Norman is not the one in charge.